I would not encourage the specific number of topic, but still depends on your own capabilities, your own thinkings, your own writing styles, preparation kind of styles. So I would not say, okay, how many numbers of the topics you should prepare, but what I want to say is that prepare well is better than prepare all of the questions, okay? So the in-depth of these questions are more important. But, which means that at least you should prepare for the right questions, right? In case if you say, okay, all of these 4 questions, oh my God, when you look at the exam paper, you'll say, okay, I just prepare another 2. Then, 0 mark, right? So prepare for the right exam. And an overall tips would be, first, well organized, okay? Very similar with your group coursework or individual assignment. You should also have introduction, main content, and conclusion, okay? And in the introduction and the conclusion, in this case, you just use 2 or 3. That's enough. 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, that's enough. Don't have to like overly writing those kind of introduction and conclusion. The main marks would be in the main content section. Okay, main content. And also, I will tell you about this more specifically later. Usually, for us, especially for this core module, in one typical essay question, it will include not only one key component. Usually, it will have 2 or 3 components, okay? Do not miss any one of them. If you miss any one of them, it's quite risky, okay? So at least you should make sure you answer all the components of that question, which means that in the main content part, you will divide this into a few paragraphs based on the main contents you're going to cover for that question, okay? So this is the structure, and also focus. This is very important, okay? So let's take, week 9 will not appear in exam, right? Let's take a week 9 example. So sustainability. If the question is about corporate social responsibility, then answer the question from corporate social responsibility perspective. If your focus is on sustainability or ethics, you will lose your mark. Okay? You will lose your mark because the question would clearly ask which perspective you should answer. In case, except the situations that you did not prepare for that question. Okay? So, when the question asks 1 or 2 specific perspectives or theories, try to keep focus. So most of your paragraphs, the main content, should stick with CSR rather than other components. Of course, I did not discourage all of you write other components from other lectures even. You are feel free to do so, but try to keep focus. Okay, the main theories or arguments should be built on the questions itself. Okay, you can apply additional information, of course. And well supported, again, supporting information comes from 2 sources. 1, examples, real life cases. That's why I told you guys, attending tutorial sessions, specifically case discussion sections, very important. Because you can reflect this in the final exam writing. So when you say, for example, sustainability, the questions are about how companies can implement sustainability capabilities or corporate social responsibilities. Then there are different levels, right? So you can give one specific example for those 4 different levels. So that is the example. So for example, bank 万科 is actually conducting community service. For example, Apple, Nike is adopting ethical practices by following the rules and legal requirements, for example, like that. So one supporting source, examples, real life cases. Another supporting sources, additional readings. So for example, the question is about CSR, how companies can conduct CSR practices. So you can probably argue that according to Kotler and Keller, they think that blah, blah, blah model can explain, for example, brand equity can explain the CSR effectiveness. They assume that they state that CSR practices would enhance the company's brand overall performance, for example, like that. So this is more about another source of supporting information, okay? Coming from 2 sources, 2 types of sources. And the 4th tip, well packaged, means that in the introduction, in the conclusion, you should highlight the main points in this overall essay. And in the main content, you should also use the key sentences to summarize what you're going to write in these 4 paragraphs. Okay? So again, it's more about highlighting the most important information. And more specifically, this is more about specific points or tips you can look at. First, budget your time. Very important, okay? So, when you receive the exam paper at the very first glance of the time, so when you open up the exam paper, read all of these 4 questions. Read all of these 4 questions and tick which 2 you are going to answer. But definitely, question 1 is compulsory, right? So you have to answer question 1 anyway. So question 1 ticked, and 2 to 4 you should choose most confident one. Okay? So try to say, let's say you have, which is in a lucky situation, you prepared all the 3 questions and you got luck, right? Wow, I got all the 3. But try to list out which one you feel more comfortable and confident, okay? And only choose 1. And then right after these 2 questions, budget your time. 1 hour per question, okay? Stick with the time. So it's 6 o'clock now, try to answer another one. So leave the first question aside, okay? And then try to answer another question. Otherwise, you don't have time probably, okay? So, budget time, read all the questions, list out the key questions you're going to answer, and draft the structure. Usually I encourage you would draft the structure on the exam paper or in the green answer booklet. So either way is okay? So try to brief out the main structure or the key components you're going to cover in each question. So just write down the bullet points or the key points you're going to cover, and start with writing and try to put the question number first, and then use the introduction, the main content, and the conclusion, those kind of structure. And I usually encourage all of you would highlight the main points in the main body part, okay? Trust me, I have to mark almost 200 scripts. Check your handwriting, okay? Handwriting is really important. Even you answer all the points of that question, but if you cannot recognize your handwriting, anyway, you will lose your mark, right? So handwriting, very important. Clearly and very obvious, okay, which point I just have already answered, okay? So, highlights, important. Answer the right question, important. And write down the question number you have answered in the cover page of green answer booklet. That's very important. For example, you're going to put 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 in the cover page of green answer booklet. Okay? So this is all the tips. And now let's start with how to write a very good essay type question. For example, the question is about this, the new product development process, why new products would fail and how to succeed. And when you look at the past exam papers, you can find a pattern. Usually, it requires you to refer to the relevant literature, illustrate your answer with examples. So, all the questions, I would say, need illustration with examples. Do remember, whether the example is like using one example throughout all the script or using multiple examples in each section where it's necessary, either way is okay. Okay, it's not about the number of the examples, but also about the in-depth evaluation of the examples, the relevance of the example with your arguments. Okay, so the examples would also be the marks you can get from these answers. Okay, so the question here, can somebody tell me how many key components in this question? How many key components?
3.
Many? 3? Yeah? 3? 3? 3? Yeah. 4? Yeah? Probably, yeah. 5? That's too many. Not 5. 4? 4? Yeah. The first one is what? Process. Right? Process. Second? Issues. Third? Solutions. What are the fourth? Examples? Examples should be all over these kind of 3 components. Okay, let's say the question about 4 or 3 main components. Okay, 3 main components. So, firstly, you should have your introduction, right? So, introduction, do not copy the question, okay? Do not copy the questions. You just use your own understanding to illustrate the phenomena of this question, okay? So, for example, you would say, okay, nowadays with blah, blah, blah technology, with blah, 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 a new product development is very important. And also, but however, to reality, a lot of new products failed in the marketplace. Oh, this essay aims to understand the key issues and the key product development process, as well as the key solutions that would solving this kind of issue. Okay? So, clearly stating the aim of this essay. Okay? So, usually the typical structure is briefly mention about phenomena, okay, and then, or let's say reality, and then try to clear out the aim of this essay. Okay, the aim of this essay is to blah, 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 discuss and assess, okay? So this is a very brief introduction. And starting from the main body, in the main body part, first, you should talk about new product development process. So to my understanding, there are 6 or 7 steps, although it's not covered in the revision, right? But it's a steptual or processual model to describe the new product development process. And here, it's not only about providing the bullet points. Bullet points. Be careful with bullet points. Do not use bullet points in the exam. Okay, do not. I still remember in the group coursework, only 1 or 2 groups use bullet points. That's really not good. Okay, so avoid using bullet points. What is bullet points? Like this. Okay, so the step 1, step 2, step 3, step 3, step 4, step 6, step 5. This is bullet point. No. You can use, let's say, simple figures, simple table, simple picture in your final exam as long as you are capable to do this. That's fine. But in the main body part, especially when you write paragraphs, do not use this. Okay? Usually use paragraphs. Very important. Because some of you would say, okay, I just want to save time. So this is very, very clear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, blah, blah, blah. No. This is not an essay. What we need is an essay. Essay consists of paragraphs. Paragraphs need what? Sentences. Okay? Sentences, not the key words. We need sentences. So these sentences to describe, okay? So you should write down clearly. The first step is generating ideas. The second step is blah, blah, blah. And then in each step, explain what is that step. So generating new business ideas would require a team of work, and actually sometimes it will brainstorm some business ideas, la, 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 la. Whereas necessarily, you can give it an example. If you cannot think about an example, you don't have to, but if you can think about one example in here, you can put one example here, okay? So this is the first main part, NPD process, use paragraphs. Second part, issues. And use one linking sentence. That would be a best case. So let's say, okay, all the process steps are listed out in the first section. And starting with the second paragraph of your main body, you would think, okay, although new product development process seems very sophisticated, very complicated, but to a large extent, a lot of new products fail in the marketplace. For example, when Google Glass was launched in the new marketplace, people don't like it, and actually it failed, blah, blah, those kind of example, right? And start to discuss the issues. So you can say, the main reasons causing this failure includes, first, they don't understand the market. Second, they ignore this kind of financial powers, and they lack of investment, for example. And also sometimes they are developing these kind of products without appropriate technologies, for example. And finally, something like that, okay? So not necessarily have to follow these kind of words, but try to be clear in this part as well. And this part, for this question here, we might need examples. So examples here. So you might provide one example in the whole paragraph, or sometimes you would prefer 2 examples in each point. That is also okay. So either way is okay. So you would use Apple all the time, or you would use multiple cases to illustrate different points of views. that also acceptable. Either of them is acceptable, okay? And third paragraph, solutions. So you might discuss, say, okay, in order to solve these issues, in order to tackle these issues, companies or brands would also probably think about some possible solutions. So again, very similar with this section, okay? So list out, write down all the possible solutions here. So for example, first, second, and thirdly, okay? So here, there is a question. Some of you would argue that, okay, Rusa, I would like to suggest use another structure. So for example, when we talk about one particular issue, I would talk about one particular solution, right? Some of you would prefer like this way to structure this answer, which of course is good, okay? As long as you can cover all the key points, either structure is okay. Either structure is okay. So I will not restrict that one particular specific structure you should follow, but as long as you have answered all the components of the questions, that would be okay. So for this question, you should at least cover those three main components. And the additional findings or additional readings you can illustrate can be reflected either of those three parts or all of the three parts. This would determine how much additional marks you can get. But it's not like that you lost your focus, okay? You should still focus with these three main parts. And at the end, you will have a few sentences to conclude your main body contents. So, this is the typical structure. And to my experience, in the past few years, this is one of the final exam questions. A lot of students actually, believe me, they miss at least 1 point, at least one component of this question, okay? So that's why I would encourage all of you guys at least to list out or draft a little bit before you answer this question. Because when you get a very speedy handwriting, sometimes your memory cannot pace up, right? So that's my experience. So I have to write down a little bit at the very beginning in order to remind me if I forgot anything in the middle, right? So try to draft out the key points you're going to cover. As long as some of you get fancy ideas, you would say, okay, I want to achieve first class marks, above 70. I want to add additional readings by citations, providing citations. Cool idea, very cool, okay? But not reference list, okay? You don't have to remember the whole lot reference list, but citations. Citations, definitely. Citations would add value, I can tell you, okay? All the first mark scripts include citations. So citations, for example, Yuan, okay, Lisa Yuan, 2024. Or let's say Martin Liu, 2023, or any other authors, 2023 or 2022. But be very careful, be very careful. It's not like that you are put as many as possible and then you can get higher marks. No, no. Relevance. Firstly, relevance. Secondly, do not make up these authors by yourselves, okay? So some of you would say, okay, value perception is very important to achieve customer loyalty, Yuan 2024. I never wrote that article, right? So again, it's all about citations, relevance, and credibility, okay? Definitely, we might check your citations in the relevant additional materials, okay? So, usually, and Some of you might ask then, how many would you suggest, Rusa, in one particular answer question, right? I would also, not talking about the specific number, okay, it's meaningless, but usually, to my understanding, if it is an excellent piece of work, I usually have only three is enough, okay? 3 citations, that's enough, okay? But relevant, very important, okay? This is the additional mark. And if some of you are capable, still get time to write or to draw some tables, figures, that's cool too, okay? That's cool, but as long as you have enough time, okay? And also, it's all about it is relevant, okay? And also, try to stick with these main components first. Try to keep focused first. If you only focus on these 2 issues and the solutions, ignore this MPD process, don't worry, you will still get a pass mark, but only pass mark, okay? Only around 50 to 60, this kind of range. You probably would not get above 60, right? So above 60, which means the upper second class mark, you would answer briefly all these main components at least. And the range from 60 to 65 based on your evaluations with examples and with your arguments, and of course about your language, right? Sometimes I understand some of you have clear ideas, but the language sometimes is difficult to understand, right? So try to prepare for the notes as clear as you can. And trust me, memorizing them, important. You have to memorize. Some of you would think, okay, I just freestyle. All of these components, points are in my memory. I don't have to memorize, and I don't have to do this. Trust me, in the exam, you can't remember at all, okay? So try to memorize as much as you can. And handwriting, again, handwriting, try to practice. When you think, you cannot necessarily write down, trust me, okay? So there is a huge gap there. So try to practice. So for example, if you want to practice this MPD, then you just give yourself half an hour or even 1 hour to answer this question in your own notebook, for example, diary. Try to practice your handwriting and guess how much you can complete for this question. You will get surprised. You don't have enough time, trust me, okay? So if you did not practice, definitely you don't have time for preparing for 2 questions in 2 hours. So practice, very important. And some of you would also ask, Rusa, usually how many pages should we use for 1 question? Again, depends on your ability, okay? Depends on your ability. Of course, I usually encourage, if you stick or focus on the questions well, as many as possible, right? More is better, of course. But to my understanding, I think if you did not practice well with single space format, most of you only can finish 1 page. Most of you. But I usually, if you practice well, you will get more than 2 to 3 pages, single space. For double space, it's double, right? So definitely. What is double space? Because there's a green answer booklet, right? Usually this one, and they'll have different rows. And some of you would prefer write down this row and leave this blank, and continue with this row. But I usually encourage all of you use single space. Okay, single space, that's good. And about the length of these answers, but also about the structure of your arguments. The key points you have covered for these questions, okay? That is very important. And try to avoid bullet points. Be careful, really be careful, okay? Because in my experience, more than 10% of the students would use this style rather than paragraphs with sentences, okay? So paragraphs, sentences, important. Any other questions? Questions, just feel free to ask. So the citations can be additional readings and also can be cases, okay? So it can be applied in different areas in different ways. Any questions?